All right, here we are live on tape from the Hotel Lotremont. It's Club Fabulous. It's Frankly Fabulous time. It's a Frankly Fabulous show. Boy, we've got some great things. I saw Matthew Broderick today. Saw Matthew Broderick on the street walking down Bleecker Street. He looked cool. He looked kind of dazed and he looked kind of happy. I don't know. The impression that I usually get with Matthew Broderick when I see him on page 6 or whatever, he's just kind of Sarah Jessica Parker's kind of wax dummy date to all of the, high life kind of Manhattan. They seem very, with Sex and the City and the producers, they seem very high powered Manhattan centric kind of entertainment powerhouses. Insignificant, and they're responsible somewhat for the real estate values here and the gentrification and Magnolia Bakery. So it was right by Magnolia Bakery. There's just really nice park on Bleecker between, what is that, West 11th and something. Beautiful park that I like to sit in. It's my favorite place in New York right now. It's right by the White Horse Tavern. It's right between the White Horse Tavern and the Magnolia Bakery. And Bookmark, the Marc Jacobs bookstore. And then a bunch of the aforementioned, just vague, there's a place called Rothy's. Some kind of boutique shit that I just have no idea. What the fuck is Rothy's? But there's Bookmark, the Marc Jacobs bookstore. And appropriately enough, there's Matthew Broderick. So I'm walking down Bleecker, and it's my favorite street in New York, I'd say, Bleecker. Maybe, at this point. I'm really into Greenwich Avenue right now. Greenwich Avenue is my current favorite street, but Bleecker is Bleecker kind of has everything you need right on it. Codex is on Bleecker. HowlRound is on Bleecker. It's just kind of a cool street. And it cuts up, so it's kind of a shortcut to get home for me. So I'm on Bleecker constantly. And I can walk to this park in 10 minutes, and it's just so nice. It's just, there's little tables, little benches. And the dimensions of Bleecker are really nice. It's like this little farm carriage house village or something from the, 1800s. Bank Street. I think Bank Street's one of the... But I look up, in these nice... Because the thing about Bleecker is it's all storefronts. It's all shop. Even though they're all these horrible boutiques or they're just empty. Could you imagine how cool Bleecker would be if it was bookstores... little bodegas, little cool restaurants, cheap. It'd be amazing, but instead it's all of these vague money laundering schemes for the mega wealthy, the mega rich. And the neighborhood is just full of people jogging. Everybody's jogging and talking into phones. Oh yes, I'll be there at the meeting at 1 o'clock. Yeah, we're gonna send those. I'm gonna write you an email when I get home. Not everybody, but there's a lot of people in North Face vests, the Silicon Valley people, in the finance criminals. It's just the West Village is it's just a bro cattle farm. It's SantaCon all year round. It's plainclothes SantaCon, as we know. But then there's Matthew Broderick and Frankly Fabulous amongst the sheeple, amongst the chattel. The financial uber elite, who are the dumbest criminals on earth. They're all just fucking bland pirates. All they give a fuck about, they just eat money, and their skin is gray and sausage encasing. So, but I'm looking up, and there's this dog up on the top floor. I mean, these buildings are only 3 stories or whatever, 2 stories, and on the fire escape there's a dog. The fire escape is kind of your outdoor space in these tiny apartments. And so the dog is circling on the fire escape like it's a yard or something. And so I'm walking, I'm like, oh, that's Matthew Broderick. Oh, there's a dog on that fire escape. And I'm like, I don't want to bother Matthew Broderick because I think, like I said, he always looks traumatized. I heard, and I don't mean to call attention to this because I am a Matthew Broderick fan. I love Matthew Broderick. Ferris Bueller is one of the most important movies in my life. Abso-fucking-lutely. Ferris Bueller is my hero and my model in high school. I don't think I achieved Ferris Bueller, but I think Ferris Bueller is an icon It's an iconic movie. It's an iconic performance. And then I would even say, I would say for me personally, the two best John Hughes movies, Ferris Bueller and Planes, Trains, Automobiles. Ferris Bueller's kind of different than the other John Hughes stuff. It's a little more, I don't know, it feels less emotion. There's definitely emotion in Ferris Bueller, but those other movies are so like teen, 16 Candles or whatever. Ferris Bueller it's about freedom. It's about cars, sleek. It's about style, beauty. It's like a new wave. It's like Jules et Jim. It is. It seriously is. Absolutely. I think John Hughes is the American Truffaut. Sincerely, he's the high school laureate. I feel like, and he makes movies about kids and teenagers in a way that nobody else is really able to do. I don't know. And Ferris Bueller is an icon of freedom. He skips school. He says, "Fuck you" to the labor grid. We're taking your time. We're taking your life. We're going to destroy your soul. He says, "No. I am Ferris Bueller. I'm smarter than Ed Rooney and the FBI and the superego." And it's amazing how they create this idea that Ferris Bueller is like some kind of like, it's like he's mysterious. It's mysterious how cool he is. Everybody in the school is just like, "Oh, Ferris. Oh man, he got me out of summer school." Or everybody's got this kind of like weird connection with him. They all like, his charisma and his. So that's what I aspired to have it. But he's, it's because of Matthew Broderick. He kind of looks like one of the Beatles, or he looks like he could be a Beatle in a way. He looks like a combination of a few different Beatles. And then that great scene with Twist and Donka Shane is kind of interlaced throughout the movie. There's references to Godard in there, William Faulkner. Between Grief and Nothing, I'll Take Grief. That's from The Wild Palms. But it's also from Breathless. And who knows what? It's probably from the fucking Bible, I guess. Between Grief and Nothing, I'll Take Grief. That's what Ed Rooney says. Thank you for your warmth. I haven't seen it in years, but that movie was on cable, like, relentlessly. And so, I don't know. I know for me, it was part of the group psyche, definitely. Particularly in high school. So, Ferris Bueller was he was enfant terrible. He was a rebel. He was a revolutionary. His hat, his Sandinista kind of hat. His beret, his red beret. Stealing luxury, stealing the Sausage King of Chicago. Stealing beauty. They go to the art museum. They have a great day. Cameron's kind of Asperger's-y. He's kind of got clinical depression. He's medicated. In the 90s, they would have just put his ass on Ritalin. The parents, Ferris's parents are awesome. But you don't see Cameron's parents. His dad is cold. It's a cold kind of, what is that architectural style? Is that like Frank Lloyd Wright, or... It's kind of 60s, I guess, all that glass and shit. Who do you love? You love a car. So anyway, this is what's going through my head as Matthew Broderick. Well, not quite. He always, like I said, he seemed... Here's what I heard. Even though he's an icon, I love Matthew Broderick. Here's what I heard. I heard he, accidentally was responsible for somebody dying in an auto accident in Ireland or something. He was with Jennifer Grey, I think, from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, who played his sister in the movie, which is kind of interesting. But she's great. She's in Dirty Dancing. She's hilarious in Ferris Bueller. She's fucking hilarious as Jeannie. Oh, my God, she's funny. Charlie Sheen's in Ferris Bueller, for Christ's sake. Come on. God, I haven't seen this movie in so long, the lines are escaping me. Oh, you know him. If you say Ferris Bueller, oh, you know him. See, he's just everywhere. Ferris Bueller's everywhere. I think it was written for Anthony Michael Hall, but thank God Anthony Michael Hall didn't do it. It would not be, I would not have tapped into it, that's for sure. It looks different than all the other John Hughes. It feels more anamorphic. It doesn't feel like quite just some trashy studio teen film. It really seems like he shot it on the streets of Chicago in plein air. He was trying to do a new wave Truffaut type romantic joie de vivre, sweeping, through the ribbon of life or whatever, in an ode to that kind of youth. And I don't know, it's interesting how he's able to do that stuff within the context of the American kind of high school system. Breakfast Club is like that. A lot of his movies take place within these kind of like, even Vacation, it's like this is like this basic suburban American thing. It's like family vacation, station wagon. Clark is this boring kind of chemical food additive guy. Or all of these fucking high school movies. I mean, even Uncle Buck is about family and like it's beholden to the holidays, these bourgeois kind of structures or whatever. So this is what's going through my head. And Matthew Broderick, I don't know, he kind of looked cool. He kind of looked like his hair was long. It was kind of gray. And I think he lives in the neighborhood, I'm pretty sure, because I know Sarah Jessica Parker. I mean, she's all over the West Village. Everybody who's walking around is like, oh, the Sex and the City house. Oh, Magnolia Bakery. Oh, Friends. Oh, thanks a lot, shitty media of the fucking 90s. Bad sitcom television for over-publicizing this stuff and making it desirable to all these drone people. It's just me and Matthew Broderick walking around putting out the weirdo vibe. And he's just, I don't know, he looks like a king in his pajamas or something. He's just walking around, like, shuffling. And I'm like, So I heard that he, like, was responsible for somebody dying. And that happened shortly after Ferris Bueller. And you kind of feel that. His career really did change in the 90s. I don't remember him even, I remember him in that movie Road to Wellville, which I didn't see, but I remember seeing the trailer, and he looked kind of funny in it. And then in Election, and he's great in Election, but he's kind of like, he's different. His energy is different than Ferris Bueller. Ferris Bueller, he's kind of cheeky and sly, and he's sliding into the car. Oh, man with his priorities so far out of whack doesn't deserve such a fine automobile. Like, he looks cool, he's a brunette. Anthony Michael Hall's a blonde guy. And I don't know, he just brings, his face has kind of a McCartney quality. They go to the Cubs game. The jacket with the Panther or whatever the fuck that is, that leather vest. It's iconic. The whole deal. Ed Rooney. Cameron, and what's it? Not Simone. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm fucking up. What's the woman's name? What's his girlfriend's name? I don't know. She's great too. She's amazing. Dead grandmother. We'll dig up your daughter. You just roll her old bones on over here. I don't know. I haven't seen it since I was in high school, so who knows? It has a spirit. It has an elan. 5 stars. One of my favorite movies of all time. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Just say no. He's a general strike. He's a communist. He's quoting John Lennon constantly. He talks to the camera. That's amazing. He kind of hosts the movie, and he's able to do that. It's so fucking cool. When they write the shit on the screen, and the soundtrack is dope. Oh, yeah. They nailed it with the soundtrack. Holy shit. The Sputnik, whatever the fuck that song is. So many memorable goddamn songs. John Hughes soundtracks were just like mixtapes. They were always great. He was always hip. He's a hip guy. He was always listening to cool shit. That movie seems very British in a weird way. I don't know. Ferris Bueller seems like he could be in The Clash, or like, I don't know. Like I said, he has kind of a Fifth Beatle quality. In fact, I think there was a skit on Saturday Night Live when Matthew Broderick hosted around that time, where he played a fifth Beatle who played a trombone or something like that. That was the joke. But, classic. Ed Rooney's secretary. She's great and everything. That woman with the red hair. So this is what I'm going through. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to bother Matthew Broderick. Like, I don't want to... And it didn't really occur to me till even afterwards that I probably... If I would have said something, I would have said, dude, I love Ferris Bueller. Probably every fucking douchebag in the West Village says that to him. I thought it was just cooler to have, you know... I was trying to, like... throw my attention on this dog on the fire escape, because I'm just thinking that's kind of interesting. The dog's out on the fire escape. Matthew Broderick, look at that. But he's lived in the West Village, you know, for 30 fucking years or something. Like, I'm sure he, you know, that's nothing new for him. He's in a couple Wallace Shawn. He's in that Marie and Bruce movie that they shot around here. I'm not sure if that was Chelsea or the West Village, but they do a lot of stuff with New Group. And Matthew Broderick does a lot of theater stuff. I mean, for the past 2 decades, it seems that's what he's... Since he, you know, killed that person in the... No, I'm kidding. I mean, like, it's horrible. Like, but you can tell it just changed. Election, he's even, like... He just has this kind of, like... I don't know, spooked quality, or, like... clinically depressed quality, or he's not as full of energy, or like warm energy. He has more of kind of, you know, I mean, in Producers, he's Bialystok or whatever, or he's Bloom. He's the uptight Gene Wilder, you know, that's not Ferris Bueller. Ferris Bueller's not, you know, that's Cameron. Matthew Broderick became Cameron, is what I'm saying. He's kind of catatonic. Somebody needs to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Matthew Broderick. But he looked cool on the street. I'm not even sure if it was him. I think it had to be him. He looked cool, though. I was kind of like, oh, okay, Matthew Broderick looks kind of more full of life and livelier and warmer than I would have predicted. You always see him in these pictures with Sarah Jessica Parker, and he just looks like a fucking, like, handbag or something. He just looks like totally frozen, like he's completely just an accessory to her being kind of the powerhouse breadwinner post Sex and the City, which was just such a huge iconic franchise in its own way. I haven't really watched Sex and the City that much. Maybe I should do a deep dive on Sex and the City while I'm here. I don't know. It seems to appeal to a lot of these people, so maybe I'd love it too. It seems, I mean, Friends, they shot it in LA. They shot it on a fucking soundstage. It doesn't really have anything to do with New York as far as I'm concerned. That lifestyle that they're portraying on that show would never take place in that building that facade is. That they present like that's the exterior. Like that's the establishing shot for their apartment. First of all, no way is that apartment in that fucking building with that skylight and shit. That building wouldn't have that. And, like, there just wouldn't be a situation where, like... Well, I don't know. My neighbors here, directly next door, I think are, like... There's, like, definitely at least a few guys that are sort of college bro-ish seeming. And they seem to have, like, I don't know, a woman who lives there, or, like, friends that come over, so what do I know? Maybe there are a lot of people living with this Friends-type setup. They're all douchebags from the Midwest, from Big Ten schools, fucking ruining the city. It's just me and Matthew Broderick keeping it interesting. So I didn't say anything to him. I just kind of let him be. If Matthew Broderick wants to, like, chill, we can chill. It'll happen. It'll happen organically. I'm not going to force it with Matthew Broderick. I saw Parker Posey the other day. Sort of the west. I saw Piper Parabo a few years ago. Piper Parabo's East Village, Parker Posey's Chelsea, Matthew Broderick's West Village. I anticipate I'll be seeing more celebrities because the celebrities live in this area. So you'll probably just see them more, I'm guessing. Wallace Shawn lives around here. I'm hoping to make friends with him. But it's cool. I mean, what a great life that would be, to be like collaborating with people who live in this neighborhood and just like, oh yeah, I'll walk to your place on Bleecker. We'll do some rehearsals. You come to my place. That's what I hope. I hope to weave myself into the community in that way, into these elite art. That's why I'm here, to make myself indispensable, to prove my place and my worth to the highest echelons of creative endeavor in Western society. To be right near the center of it, the pulse, and to deserve to be there, and to prove it, and to just participate naturally. The other weird thing that happened to me was I was sitting on MacDougal, my favorite. I did kind of a big loop today. I went and saw the John Giorno exhibit down on Bowery, just south of Houston, right near where John Giorno's lofts were in the YMCA on Bowery, across from the Mission. Houston and Bowery, I heard, supposedly was where the word hobo came from. That's one of the theories about the etymology of the word hobo. It may have come from the intersection of Houston and Bowery. So I went to the Strand. It's the first time I've been to the Strand since September when I was here. And, first time since 6 months before that, since the pandemic. So I went to the Strand. I did kind of a big loop. Then I went to the John Giorno exhibit, which was excellent. Totally religious, totally amazing. John Giorno is the greatest. Then loop back up through the Old Village, Mercer Street Books. And then I went to down over Bleecker, up MacDougal. I always go to Saigon Shack. So, shout out to Saigon Shack. Pretty affordable for that neighborhood. Pretty delicious, pretty fresh. I just like MacDougal Street. It's where a lot of the culture that I sort of weirdly inhabit from the past took place. The Gaslight is literally right next door to Saigon Shack. That's probably one reason why I like going there, to be honest. I think now it's called the Up and Up or something, but it's literally the same fucking... It's weird to think about that because it feels like you're close to it, and it also feels completely different. It's hard to fathom that was the Gaslight, really? And look at it now. How can it be? But there it is. There's the fucking Gaslight. That's where Wavy Gravy and fucking John Brent and Taylor Mead all performed, and that's the kind of, that era of New York. The San Remo, the Cedar Tavern. And even before that, I mean, I was reading History of the Village the other day. It's pretty interesting. MacDougal Street. So anyway, I'm sitting on Saigon Shack. I stopped there to get vermicelli with pork rib. $11.92. I take it to Washington Square Park. It's a nice ritual. I get to go to MacDougal. It's on my way home. MacDougal is a street. It's the one street that still kind of feels, it's got all the neon, kind of gaslight There's not really signage. It's the one street that's really been preserved. Cafe Reggio is still there. Minetta Tavern is kind of there. It's a Comedy Cellar. If you've ever seen Louis, the opening credits of Louis, that's MacDougal Street. It's kind of interesting that the Comedy Center, that's probably one of the most esteemed rooms in comedy, I would say, at this point, the Comedy Cellar room. A lot of these guys talk about it, and a lot of Louis' show was filmed at the Comedy Cellar, which is a basement venue on MacDougal Street, much like the Gaslight, which is a basement venue on MacDougal Street, a few doors down on the other side of the street. And it's this is where NYU is. There's tons of restaurants, Mad Moods Falafel there. Further down on the street, Provincetown Playhouse. A lot of cafes, a lot of restaurants, and there has been sort of a bohemian performance. Cafe Wah in Players Theater. Was the Cafe a Go-Go there? I'm not sure, but Players Theater is where the Fugs played. Ed Sanders would rent that theater, and the Cafe Wah and the Gaslight. I was reading this fucking biography of Jimi Hendrix by David Henderson, and a lot of Jimi Hendrix kind of jam. He would jam in all these fucking places, all over New York, all over this part of town. Places in Midtown, a lot of usually on the West Side. But the Gaslight and Cafe Wah, I think they said the Gaslight was where the Rolling Stones first saw them. They saw them playing there in like 65 or 66. Mick and Keith or something went in there. Or Brian Jones. Bill Wyman. And he would, these dudes would sit in with him. Clapton would sit in with him. Cafe Wah, I think fucking Cream played there and shit. Cafe Wah, the roots go pretty fucking deep. A lot of... And it's a David Lee Roth thing, too, weirdly. David Lee Roth's uncle, Manny Roth, owned the Cafe Wah. So David Lee Roth would go there as a kid or whatever. So it's kind of tied in a lot of weird ways. But my personal tie to the Cafe Wah, and I've never been there, really. I've never been inside. But you walk by it a million times. And I'm sitting there. I knew this guy who played the guitar in the Cafe Wah band. He was like, I met him almost 10 years ago. He was a friend of a friend. And we, I wouldn't say we ever like hung out, but like, we definitely were acquaintances, and like I ran into him a number of times, and like, we sort of hung out, we talked or whatever. Get something to eat, maybe. So I knew him for a while. I think he was a Columbia guy, and I think he was also a tutor. I think he was like an SAT tutor. He was one of those guys who was just like super brainy, and I think he taught himself guitar art. Somehow he was like some super good guitar dude, and he got a job playing in the Cafe Wah band. They've got like some fucking house band there, which bills himself as the best band in New York. And like, there's a lot, the Village has a lot of bands like that, where they're just like house bands that are super funky, super groovy. The Red Lions got a house band. And that's one thing that's cool about the Village, is like, what's that place on 4th and MacDougal? With the Mural Blues, whatever the fuck that place is. They've got like a fucking bands all the goddamn... But they're like really groovy, sort of generic. They're not really like blues bands. They're not really like funk bands. They're sort of like funk show blues, rock. I don't even know. But they're all over the village. They played all these fucking places. I mean, the Bitter End is a lot of music like that. There was a bar called Terra Blues Bar. I'm not sure if that's there anymore. I remember first coming to New York and seeing that. I had written a song called Terra Stomp Blues in high school because there was some quote I read in a Hunter S. Thompson book about he stomped the Terra. So then I saw this bar. It was called Terra Blues, and I'm like, oh my god, I manifested this. I'm in the right place. You know, that was an indication that New York was kind of the place for me. But it's weird because that was the first time I came to New York, you know, almost 20 years ago. And now being on that street, it's like you have a whole different concept of it doesn't feel quite as big and as overwhelming as an active. Maybe that's just because the village was funkier and a little bit more of an edge and had more of a vitality back then. But these places are still there. The fucking, you know, Wicked Willies or whatever. So this dude is in fucking Cafe Wah house band. You know, and he's just like a super agile, super, you know, choppy fucking lead guitar player. I don't know. I mean, I've known a lot of musicians in New York that have gotten jobs a lot of different ways, to be honest. I know jazz people, I know rock people, I know touring people. I know more music people than anything else, probably, I would say. And that's not even on purpose, you know. Just like the people that I roomed with, every single fucking person practically I've known has had some kind of music element. Way more than theater and actors, to be honest. So anyway, this guy, you know, I haven't been in touch with him. I think we're maybe friends on social media or whatever. But he kind of, I don't know, that's an interesting job. He kind of connects me to this tradition in a certain way because he plays in the fucking house band at this place. And, I don't know, it's kind of cool to know somebody that, you know, is a part of that. And the other thing, though, is living in Brooklyn, the scene is just different. The Manhattan scene seems kind of like far away and kind of stale. Like these clubs in the West Village, it's not like there's some super relevant, edgy, cool music happening. Even for a college campus, the music is like remarkably just kind of funk groove, just old-fashioned. It's not like indie bands or anything like that. It's for the tourists, really, and the people that go to the Cafe Wah because it's the place Hendrix started, and they want to see some kind of like sort of Broadway pit version of, you know, Hendrix funk, what is it, Voodoo Child or whatever, Slight Return. And I don't know, I mean, these are the people who live in the city. If you're reliable, if you'll show up to the gig, if you get it done, like this guy's a super pro, so more power to him. And so I'm sitting there waiting for my food from fucking Saigon Shack. I'm sitting on the stoop. And this guy comes over sort of from Cafe Wah, which is right across the street, kind of diagonally. And he looks like this guy that I knew, but he looks way older. And it's like kind of hard to believe. It's kind of like, fuck, man, like, is that him? He looks like, I don't know, like about, like he's in his, I don't know. I mean, we've all aged. It's been a few years, but it was also kind of like, fuck, is that the same guy? I don't know. And like my energy, you know, kind of opened to him. And there was kind of like a little bit of a moment like, oh man, because I just assume people don't recognize me because my hair is long, I've got glasses and a huge beard. So I just assume anybody that sees me probably is not going to be like, oh, it's fucking Proctor. They're probably going to be like, what was that? That looked like Proctor, but, you know, as if he'd lost his job and his life and he's been living on the streets for a decade. And I don't know, there was sort of a moment where we were sort of open to like maybe I should have said something because I don't know. I'm back in New York and I don't know. I'm obsessed with this kind of like old fashioned beatnik, whatever, public poet, village bohemian, poet of the streets, oratorical, Maxwell, Bodenheim, Jack Michelin, Bob Kaufman, Taylor Mead, oral, doing it in the and I think it would be fun to do readings and to be sort of a public speaker in that neighborhood specifically. I mean, it's a college campus. Like, there's definitely an intellectual and a hip audience. I think UCB, a lot of the people at UCB, they kind of tapped into that. Everybody at UCB practically was like some fucking NYU kid, and it's just north of there. The West Village is basically a big NYU campus. It's kind of hard to believe that there's no hip culture, music-wise. Like, all the cool shit's in Brooklyn. All the people that I knew, they gradually migrate east. They start out freshman year in the West Village in dorms, and then, as they go on in the class, they move to East Village because East Village is cool. And then once they graduate, everything is happening in Brooklyn. You know what I mean? Like, Manhattan has a culture of its own, but like I said, it takes place on a lot of different levels. So you can't really just say it's stale. I mean, there certainly is that. There's vital stuff here, too. A lot of the institutions are here. The Kitchen or Dixon Place or the Poetry Project or whatever it is. Broadway, Off-Broadway, La Mama, PS 122. Like, there's institutions here. The Wooster Group that are, like, here. But, are there people starting theater companies who, like, live in Manhattan? Like, I don't fucking think so, really. Not in Lower Manhattan. Like, the people who are starting theater companies probably live in Brooklyn or Queens or maybe somewhere uptown, or I don't know. I knew some people that lived in Hell's Kitchen. I'm not sure why. Or, like, I knew people that live on the Upper East Side. I don't know if Hell's Kitchen is, like, more affordable, but I knew a couple people that lived in Hell's Kitchen. So I see this guy, and I'm like, is that him? So I don't say anything to him. And then, I don't know, maybe I put out a bad vibe. I don't know. It's just one of these things, like, the dude came... I was maybe even thinking about him. I was thinking about, oh, man, I wonder if that dude still plays at Cafe Wha or what. And then here he comes, like I fucking manifested. Like, I should connect with this guy. Why not? What the fuck? Maybe he can bring, why not have me at Cafe Wha? Let me get up in front of the band and do something cool and poetic and, like, something that, like, may have happened when that place was cool. Like, why not bring that style of performance there? Why not do poetry readings on McDougal Street? Why not do jazz and poetry or avant-garde work on McDougal Street? I know it's a tourist place, and it's weirdly kind of just like a beer bar, like bridge and tunnel place, maybe. It's like a lot of campus-type things. Like, McDougal Street is just kind of a party street, and just like... But it's not... I don't know. It's people going to... Like, the bars are, like, trashy. Like, just, I don't know. It's sort of like the Gateway or something at Ohio State. It's just like the bars smell like beer, and it just like it's a lot of dudes and a lot of low vibration energy. But I don't know. The West Village is an idyllic place, and I don't know. I think a lot of people that I met in New York had done all this shit when they were in college. They all performed in the West Village because they went to college here. They had shows and bars in the West Village and shit. And then moving to Brooklyn for them was like, well, that's where their adult work takes place and their adult lives take place. This is like they did it. It's not actually that hip, for me it was always like an attraction. It was like, oh, I want to do a show in Manhattan. I want my band to play in Manhattan. That's fucking like, yeah, that's what New York City's about. Like, Brooklyn's cool. I like Brooklyn. I feel like, Brooklyn shaped me. And I'm a Brooklyn guy at heart, really. I'm definitely, like, my fashion and my sense of whatever kind of stage comportment and lifestyle comportment definitely feels inflected by Brooklyn circa, 2010s vibe. Low-slung Ubers and just chill delivery weed. High maintenance. Playing at Much More's. Constantly. Never not playing at Much More's. We love Much More's. Hey, maybe I should email him about getting my open mic going. See, but now I'd have to take a fucking train to Brooklyn. But how am I going to get people to come to Manhattan? Everybody lives in Brooklyn. If I did a reading series in Manhattan, everybody already has to drag themselves here to go to the official stuff, the institutional stuff. If you want to see some at NYU or Columbia or Zinc or Segway or Dia, it's all in Manhattan. It was kind of cool to have a series in Williamsburg. But now I live in Manhattan, so I don't. But I could get on the L train and do it out there, I guess. So anyway, I'm not sure if it's this guy, but maybe there's a weird moment. So he goes into this other place and he just kind of disappears. I'm thinking, okay, well, that's fine. I now I can avoid. I don't know. I wish that it wasn't so nerve-wracking to just say hi to people. Oh, hey, how you doing? I thought it was you. I wasn't sure if you recognized me because of my beard. I don't know. This is something I was talking about with my mom the other day. I think for our generation, it's just harder to make small talk and to like, and to if you see somebody in public or something, it's always like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Oh, I have to avoid them, or oh God, there's so much pressure, I have to talk to them, or what am I going to say? Or I know that I usually run the other way because it's too much pressure, and God, what if I'm awkward, or how am I gonna get out of this conversation? How long is it gonna last? Clerks, people in stores, it's like, oh my God. What am I going to say to the clerk? How am I going to make it through a conversation successfully with them? So that's how it was with this guy. It was just like, oh, thank God I kind of avoided this. It was weird because it's almost like a gift. It's like serendipity. It's like, here comes this guy. I was just thinking, and there he is. And like, he's probably getting ready for his gig. They probably reopened recently. This is probably the first time he's played indoors, in that space maybe. At least for people, in over a year. And he's probably getting some food before his gig. Like, that's a pretty cool life, man. He's been able to do that for, I don't even know how long he's been doing that. 5, 6, 7, 8 years. He's in the fucking house band at Cafe Wall. He makes money. That's pretty sweet. That's a pretty good gig for a musician. But I also am kind of like, it's kind of, I don't know. It's not it's not weird performance art. Like I said, it's kind of funk groove, just generic. I don't know how much I actually like. He's a good player, but it's just all technique, It's not, there's not really a whole lot of like palpable substance that or thrust to it like you want from McDougal Street or whatever, or what it optimally would mean. It's just a cover band, essentially, as far as I know. Maybe I'm being a smug prick. Probably. Judgmental prick. That's me. Frankly fabulous. I'm the social critic, okay? It's what I do. I'm a man about town. This is my column. This is my New York goings-on. Reportage from the scene. So, I'm waiting for my food, right? And they ask for your name when you give them the food. when you order the food. And I'm sitting on the stoop, and this woman comes out, and I thought she said Matt. It was just one syllable. And it was like I had ordered before anybody else. I figured it was my food. I was the only person there. And I don't think he was going in this other restaurant. So I didn't think he was going, So I thought she said Matt. We've got masks on. You can't tell what people are saying. And it was one syllable, and it was begin with a consonant, ended with a consonant. Matt. So I get up, and I'm like, okay, I take it. And I look at it, and the name, and I look at it, and it's not my food. It's a pork sandwich. It's pork banh mi. And I look at the name, it says Ben. And so I take it back to her, and I say, oh, this is not my food. I'm sorry. I fucked up. She's like, what's your name? And I'm like, Matt. She's like, hold on. And so I go and I sit back down on the stoop, and she says a couple more times, she goes, Ben, and I realize it's his food. The dude that I know, his name is Ben. So I picked up his food. I had his fucking food in my hand. It's like, how much more, like, karmically am I going to be pushed into an interaction with this guy? Like, it's clear I'm supposed to talk to him for some reason. I need to connect with this person for some reason. Like, it's just like I'm being drawn into this, like, so powerfully. So she goes, Ben, and he's in the restaurant. And so she goes back inside with his food. I'm thinking, oh, great. And so then he comes back out. And I'm thinking, should I just say something to him? Should I just be like, hey, man, your name's Ben, right? I just had I knew you from a long time ago. I recognize you. I didn't realize. I just had your food. It's done. Because I didn't want him to miss it. She went back inside with it. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. But I didn't say anything. I just stood there on the stoop, and he was standing right next to me. And he had to have recognized me. I'm sure that he did. His energy felt like he recognized me. And for whatever reason, I was just a coward. I just didn't say anything. I don't know. 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, it wouldn't have been hard for me to have that conversation. But it was kind of shocking to see how much older he looked. And I was thinking to myself, like, Jesus Christ, I probably look the same. Like, we both look like we're worse for wear. We've been kind of like living it up, Now we look middle-aged and shit. So, I didn't intervene and save his sandwich. Eventually, she came back. I think he went in. And said, hey, I was wondering about my food. Do you have... And she was like, oh, yeah, you're Ben. Okay. So then he got his food and he left. And then a couple minutes later, she came out with my food. So that was my... I don't know. I mean, it was just like... Maybe that sounds insignificant, but it was just like such a karmically, like... I'm clearly being drawn into an interaction with this guy. Why am I avoiding this? He's right here. Like, why not just be like, hey, man, see what it means. Just what does it mean, I mean, that's one of the things that's frustrating about New York is that stuff does seem harder. Small talk or just being nice, those kind of like, it just, everybody's kind of, or at least that's the way it was before, With the post-pandemic, people have definitely been nicer. Like, I'm getting more kind of, have a good day or take care kind of things. But as things sort of return to business as usual in New York as usual, will that disappear and will it go back to the sort of like hooded emotionlessness of before? I don't know. I just am sick of being inhibited behaviorally because of New York's supposed standards about, excellence or how serious you need to be or just how proficient or professional or just, I don't know, you just need to be a killer here. You need to be a deadly shot about everything and be totally veiled with your, you need to have a total poker face, It's a crazy game of poker. Like Cafe Wa has kind of OAR vibes in a way. It has kind of Buckeye or Scarlet and Gray Cafe vibes. It's a little jammy, and these things can be right. At least that's been my experience. A lot of it is like these things are right in front of me, and I just cower. It's weird having been here a decade, because what I find a lot is the past. I'm sort of here looking for something new. I feel like with the pandemic, with this apartment, with returning, I'm looking for new. I'm looking for the beginning. It feels like it's taken me 10 years and I haven't even begun yet, to be honest. I don't have anything to show for my efforts, really. I don't have any other than a small body of work. I don't have money or an apartment or a book, really, or anything official. And it feels like my career in particular hasn't really begun. I haven't really actually started doing what I want to do. I think I've figured it out to some degree, but I just don't know if the public is going to want it really as much as I want it. John Mulaney's back, the motherfucker. Who gives a fuck about him? Everybody's like, oh, it's Mulaney's first show since rehab. It's like, fuck him. Who cares? He sucks. He's boring. He's white. He's cis. He blows. Fuck his howdy doody looking ass. And who gives a fuck? Everybody's been not doing shit. Why does he get special? Oh, he's doing his first shows at City Winery. Fuck him. Fuck Mulaney. Okay? And it's like, so he's divorced, right? And everybody's like, oh my God, poor Mulaney's divorced. His wife is heartbroken. Oh, she's heartbroken. Then the news comes out today. Oh, he's dating Olivia Munn. Gee, I wonder what this was about. He just wants to bang hot chicks. Motherfucker. That's his rebound, Olivia Munn. He's trying to Pete Davidson it up. He's trying to bring out the inner Pete Davidson, the motherfucker. He's Tiger Woods in the shit. It's fake rehab. He just wants to party. And he will. The pandemic's over. It's party time for John Mulaney. So fuck him. I could smoke him. He's just fake. He just sucks. Give me a special. Give me a Netflix special, man. I'll just do this. People will love it. It'll be legendary. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not gonna, we're living in the higher vibration. We're not gonna let that defeat us. It wasn't a big deal. It was just kind of an interesting thing. Like what I'm trying to do musically or whatever is way different. I don't know where the overlap is there. I'm not aware of experimental noise type musicians having any kind of like substantial territorial foothold in Manhattan like they do in Bushwick. I'm not aware. I could be wrong. Maybe every fuckface in the West Village or the East Village or in their dorm rooms and shit, maybe they all have circuit boards and shit. Yeah, so another interesting kind of factoid I was reading about it. So I was reading about the history of the West Village, and there was this part where it was talking about the yellow fever outbreaks of the West Village. Has been there obviously, since 1600s or wherever. But it was extremely far north, and it was like kind of a farm. I think there was kind of a farm area, like, sort of like the Bowery. Peter Stuyvesant had a farm. I think there was a similar thing over here where it was like from, 4th Street or whatever to 23rd Street was like one person's land, and it was kind of like pastoral. I think it was wooded, actually. They said it was kind of hilly and like, what did it meant like, woods in the hills or something like that. It still kind of retains that kind of labyrinthian, kind of like forest feel in a way. The way the streets and just the dimensions in the houses and whatnot. It feels like you're in the Lost Woods or something. It almost feels like it's reconfiguring itself. I've sort of figured it out. You know, when I used to come to the West Village, which was pretty regularly when I lived in Brooklyn, I would always come to the West Village. I'd always take the train into West 4th and just walk, you know. And it always felt like the West Village just completely... It was like the Zelda maps that just like totally reconfigure themselves. It felt like every time it was like, wait a minute, how the fuck does this street go into this? I never really bothered to figure out exactly... Because, you know, coming into it, it's like a 40-minute train ride, 30-minute train ride from wherever you're coming from. It's already a pain in the ass. And then you got to worry about, I got to get back on the train. So you come in for a few hours, and then you're spent. And it's all centralized around that one stop, you know. It's all centralized around Washington Square. Or I didn't really get into the extreme West Village as much, which now I feel like that is... kind of my home. Everything west of 8th Avenue, west of 7th Avenue, you know, Washington Street, Greenwich Ave, Perry, where the White Horse Tavern is. That really feels like that's the part that I'm like spending most of my time in. And really like, when I leave the house, that's where I'm headed generally. That's where I like to hang out and just kind of like, that's the outdoor space. The grid system, the outdoor space is not really relaxing. It's kind of everything's huge, you know, and the what outdoor space there is brief, you know, it's like a brief interruption. The West Village, everything shrinks. It's the Mushroom People. It's the Mushroom Kingdom. It's the Hobbits. It's the Shire of Manhattan Island. But it's just amazing how you can, you know, when you live on Manhattan. From here, I walked through Chelsea, West Village, you know, over to whatever the fuck you want to call that, where the Strand is. That's Greenwich Village, I guess. You know, Union Square, down through there, over to Bowery, then down through Little Italy, sort of touching Chinatown. You know, how many different fucking neighborhoods, how many different realities, how many different worlds do you walk through in a short span of time? Soho, then back up to Bleecker, Thompson, Sullivan, McDougal, over Barrow Street, Christopher Street, 7th Avenue. Just worlds, you know. Famous worlds. Geographies that a lot of people are familiar with. That's why I feel like they can sort of be talked about in a broad way. So I was reading about it really accelerated population-wise in the early 1800s, in the late 1700s, because they were having the yellow fever outbreaks downtown. You know, New York City traditionally was south of, like, Houston, pretty much everything. You know, south of Canal, the extreme downtown, the financial district, that was kind of like the town, really. That is winding kind of streets. That's more like Boston, or, you know, like a European kind of port town or something. Dublin, maybe. I don't know. I've never been to any of them. But it's narrow streets. They curve more like a lane. Things have been built up. What's that fucking tavern where there's all this George Washington shit down there. The Francis Tavern and shit. You know, like, that was New York City. And then the rest of it didn't really even start to get there until the 1800s. The West Village, a lot of these buildings they built in like the 1830s, the 1850s. And then the grid didn't really start to fill in until 1900. You know, Central Park, 59th Street, they didn't get up there till, 1900 practically. And then he kind of like filling it all in. But, so they would have these yellow fever outbreaks, which was an epidemic. It was a pandemic. And I'm not sure what's the difference between the two. I'm not sure. But they said that, so the West Village started to become, it was like this kind of country retreat north of the city at that point. Like I said, hills and kind of a wooded area by the shore of the Hudson. I think you could swim and shit. And so a lot of the finance people, in order to get away from the yellow fever, they fled the city to Greenwich Village, to the West Village. And they built houses up there, and they started to fill it in. I thought that was kind of interesting. Like this problem or this pattern we have, like with this pandemic. What happened? All the finance people fled the city. They bought country houses upstate or in Connecticut or wherever they could, Just like they did, this is nothing new. New York City's been through a number of pandemics. Probably with regularity. Pandemics were a somewhat regular occurrence up until, about 100 years ago. They said Bank Street. It's called Bank Street because they said one of the firms downtown, one of their workers died of yellow fever, so it freaked them out, and so they all moved their operations to the West Village to get out of the city. Bank Street, all these banks had their offices. This was like the 1820s or something. So that was the beginning of when it kind of started to fill in. So I guess having a bunch of finance criminals there now, it's just like so suburban and white. That's what's like shocking about it. Is you're just kind of like, this guy's throwing a football with his kid in the middle of West 4th Street or something. Like, I would expect that this guy, like, lives in the most conservative suburb of, like, Gainesville, Florida, or Houston, Texas, or Atlanta or something. And yet, he just bought this house for his family or whatever in the West Village. It's like, what the fuck? What is going on here? What interest does this guy have here? I don't know. That's what I walked around and saw today. Matthew Broderick wandering around. So that's my second celebrity sighting. And then this other guy. I don't know. I want to make myself totally new. I feel like my style is too old-fashioned, and for the past few years I've been kind of steeped in like this extreme boomer culture, or maybe even, whatever you want to call the 50s or 60s culture. And sort of studying that, New Directions or City Lights or Olson Projective Verse, Objectivist, Taylor Mead and John Jordan are an interesting pairing, because Taylor Mead, I thought, was kind of, he's more indicative of 50s beat abstract expressionist. He's kind of a mess. He's improvisational, and then there's kind of moments where he'll read things. It's about chance. He incorporates a lot of that 50s. And then Giorno is more pop art. He's clean. His stuff is very rehearsed. It's very written exactly. It's impeccably presented. It's almost like machine-like, it's sort of Warhol-ish. I didn't really get it. I was trying to pinpoint when exactly I actually keyed into the John Giorno thing. Because he was around the whole time the whole decade he was around. I kind of took it for granted, to be honest. I mean, I loved him. I thought he was great, but, he grew on me. To the point that over the past year, I don't know, he's taken on a special significance. I think what he was doing was more contemporary than these other poets, to be honest. Maybe than all of them, because it's specifically oral, and he does kind of find these diamonds of language, and he notices thought patterns that are chronic and relatable, that are negative, and they're kind of funny. He's one of these artists, and I was thinking about Scorsese, because I walked through sort of part of Little Italy over by that, whatever that police building is on Center Street, that courthouse or whatever. It's a precinct or something from the 1800s. Beautiful building. It looks European with these domes and but John Jovino Guns was over there, and it's gone. John Jovino went out of business during the pandemic. John Jovino has literally been there since the 1800s or something. It's one of the oldest, maybe even the 1700s. It's one of the oldest fucking stores in Manhattan. It's famous because it had a gun. The sign was literally like a gun. It's in some Scorsese movies. It's in Mean Streets. So I was trying to see where John Jovino was, because it went out of fucking business. It was one of the best things about New York was John Jovino. The gun sign. That's one of those things that, I don't know, it's just comedic how aggressive and masculine and violent that is. But it was also kind of cartoonish. The gun was this big paper mache thing or something. It looked like some Michel Gondry gun or something. But John Giorno has that kind of, a lot of things. He's got this, he's got this kind of just in your face, very New York, just intensely honest, intensely confrontational, intensely truthful, but kind of loud, kind of loudmouth, kind of but I don't know. I mean, he's able to just you gotta make them come, you gotta make them come. And I'm sure that a lot of that was informed by stuff he had seen on the streets, people he heard. All you do is sit around watching TV. People he'd heard yelling at each other. I don't want to be here anymore. How am I going to do this for 6 hours? How am I going to be here for 6 more hours? I never want to be here with you people again. I never want to be here again. Shit that, yeah, we've all thought this. How does he portray it so accurately? He's just able to catch it and be yeah, we all have felt this. And I don't know, he kind of relishes for as Buddhist and positive. I think that's his way of kind of savoring it, kind of turning into humor. John Giorno in no way is a stand-up comedian, but his act can rock that hard, and the way he performs is not too different, to be honest. He can go into a club just by himself with a microphone and just rock the place like he's fucking Rodney Dangerfield or something, to be honest. Even though he's a poet, I don't know if there's that many people. But he doesn't go so far into descriptiveness and like ephemera. You know, he really does manage to like streamline everything down to like essential phrasing. And even when he repeats stuff, it feels like, yeah, that's that feels like your mental. It's effective. I mean, on the page, it always weird. I wasn't sure about it, like reading John Giorno stuff. I never really appreciated the idea of his printed work because of the repetitions. And I don't know, to be honest, like, it is different. But, verbally and performatively and orally, they're incredible. All his experiments with synthesizers and Moog and are phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And pioneering. He's pioneering in so many ways. He's way ahead of everything. Giorno Poetry Systems. When you're walking around in New York, you see like restaurant systems. Cisco restaurant systems or, dry cleaning systems. There's all these trucks. Plumbing systems, heating and cooling. And you're like, okay, this is where John Giorno got the idea for Giorno Poetry Systems. And he's an entrepreneur and he was a business person. His dad, I think, and he was on Wall Street. Giorno was a trader on Wall Street. Like, he knew how to industrialize and commercialize to some extent and like business his work with poetry. That's extremely not easy to do. The albums he put together and shit. Sugar, meat, alcohol, and tobacco or whatever. Like, they're all incredible. Like, he really is a fucking genius. And he's different. He's not as concerned with playing into the canon or the traditions as the other people. He wasn't. You don't get the idea he's working from being beholden to reading a lot of poetry and working in that climate or that genre. He's working to just like be immediately effective. He wants to, his stuff is going to hit the air and it's going to be funny and it's going to be mind-blowing. It's going to be like Zen koan, kind of like contradictory or wisdom. He's all about wisdom mind. Fill what's empty, empty what's full. He would do ceremonies, and this was something, his loft and the way he lived is very inspirational to me. He would do ceremonies in his loft, this is my Giorno, if I may. I mean, this is like as close. He had this incredibly huge space in this old fucking YMCA on Bowery. So the building's from like the 1800s, and it's just like huge. It's like a fucking basketball gymnasium or something. It's absolutely massive. And he's got plants and huge arching windows and light and just like the greatest place you could ever fucking live. Right on Bowery near Houston. And he pays, it's rent controlled. He's paying a couple $100 a month. Like Giorno, he deserves it. He industrialized the fuck out of it, Like he totally maximized his profit margin with Giorno Poetry Systems. So he did it. And so he had a big fireplace. He had like a huge fucking like Citizen Kane fireplace. Like a hearth. He'd cook huge, gorgeous meals. They'd smoke joints all the time. Like, what a life. Giorno had one of the greatest lives. He really did it. During the golden age of promiscuity. He did everything right. Giorno's absolute master. And so every New Year's, right? What an amazing, think about the texture of the Bowery in the 60s, 70s, 80s. He lived through all of this shit. Think about the holiness of this city, the sacred filth and decay and derelict. Giorno lived through all that, smoking joints, doing acid, and reading at the Poetry Project, giving everybody else acid, having sex with Robert Rauschenberg and Jasper Johns and shit. And so every New Year's, he would have all of these monks. He'd have like 100 monks come over to his apartment. And they do some kind of sacred dance ceremony or some kind of all-day fucking ceremony. I don't even know what it was. But literally every year, he would bring this energy into his home. And like, how fucking special can your life get? You know, like, that's what we wanted to do at the Slooge. And I feel like the Slooge, we were able to do that for the most part. Like having the hula, amongst other things. We had a lot of people bring in. And it was a big kind of like gymnasium like space. And this, I feel like, this is my kingdom. Not that I'm going to bring 100 monks in here, but I think about that kind of cleansing and sage. And so I've got the incense, I've got the sound bowl that my producer so generously gifted to me. And I want to do writing groups and have small gatherings of special sacred people and whatnot. But yeah, so Giorno, I went to the Giorno exhibit today. It was in a gallery, and it's just these canvases. They're like memes in a way. They're like tweets. They're just like these diamond bullets of thought, but they're impeccably kind of like silk-screened. It's a very Warhol-ish process, but they look like TVs, or like, they almost look like parental guidance kind of font. They've got this kind of like controversial, like in your face. He was able to incorporate a lot of that stuff too. Like I was listening to his music, and if you've never listened to Giorno's music, definitely check it out. It was like 80s New York in just like the absolute best way, like Ian Waldman's Plutonium. But he really was capturing a lot of cool stuff, even though his stuff sounds like super 80s and like probably to most people would sound kind of weird and, I don't know, just kind of like unusual, not necessarily. It's like a poet band. So it's not, he doesn't really sing. That's what I think is cool about it. The band kind of does like, it's like a rock band, but they incorporate heavily percussive kind of in your face, like bounce, bounce. It's almost like your head is getting slammed into like a refrigerator or something. Like, it sounds like, you know, the streets. There's hip-hop, kind of early hip-hop or rap-ish beat, like boombox kind of like impact to some of it. Synthy. It's got a lot of interesting kind of synthesizer madness. Sort of, I don't know, circa, 81, 82, 83, 84. It's kind of like Thomas Dolby-ish, or, you know, it's kind of mad scientist, but it's punk, and it's just very intense, and there's kind of doom metal elements of it. It's fantastic. Highly recommended, because he just talks. His lyrics fit the song in an interesting way, because they fit the song like melodies. They fit the song as if he's singing. Like, he times it out like their melodies and their verses. But he just reads it, and it doesn't rhyme or anything. It's just these kind of disparate non sequitur phrases about, you know, fearless authority and disaster. Like, I don't know. You just get on YouTube, listen to all the John Giorno music. It will absolutely... It's what I've been listening to more than anything, because there's a clarity to it, and it's just funny as fuck. Like, he really does edit. He really does revise stuff. His work is clean, like pop art is. Well, I mean, Warhol has some dirtiness to it, I suppose. Giorno's stuff is cleaner than that, even. And it's very Instagram. Like, that's why I feel like he just gets more and more and more and more relevant. Like, the things that he was doing, he was always interested in technology. Dial-a-poem was a huge thing. Really, that was a big media phenomenon. Like, he was able to do that, and he toured the world doing his shit. He went to fucking Europe all the time, Pompidou. You know, he's respected there. He's just got the career. Like, Giorno is absolutely, like, the hero. He is the fucking bard. His presentation is phenomenal with just, like, the black turtleneck, black slacks, like classic downtown. And he comes up and he just gives it to you. So, and he never misses. It's clean. I mean, the thing I've been cultivating is more 50s tailor-made. It's more kind of rough around the edges. It's more slop. It's more abstract expressionist. It's sketch work. It's incorporating kind of the action. And then you have moments, like I was looking at these de Kooning drawings. They're you know, the scattered kind of like draft of it is part of the texture. And then there's moments of exact clarity and sort of vivid brilliance, and that seems like life to me in a way. You know, you have kind of a blur, and you have kind of like, and then there's moments of just like eye contact, whereas everything slows down, and you really see it. A lot of time, that's what I'm looking for out in the city with strangers. I make sort of like intense communicatory eye contact with a lot of different types of people. Because I'm trying to show, hey, I see you. I'm looking. I'm out here looking. That's what I'm doing. I'm walking around looking at shit. I'm trying to, I love overhearing conversations. I mean, New York City is worth it to live here. It's completely worth it to live here just so you can go out into the street and overhear what people are saying. It's amazing. I feel like you learn about society. You learn what people are thinking. You see people crying regularly. I saw this woman crying on, I don't know, somewhere in Little Italy. Was it on Grand Street? It was like Grand and Mott or Elizabeth Street, kind of around there. Right when I was going over to Center Street. And I think this guy had broken up with her. I don't know what the fuck it was. This woman was just crying. This guy said something to her, hugged her, and like walked the other way. And she was like crying as if like her heart was broken or something. I don't know. That's pretty normal for New York. You see people breaking up regularly or fighting or crying or having awkward miscommunications regularly. And you also just hear kind of juicy anonymous dialogue. You know, the voice of the populace, the voice of the city is, you know, this is the gathering of our society. This is the gathering of humanity. It's New York. It draws from everywhere. So you're getting the pulse. You're getting an aggregate, an average of everything. I mean, the pandemic fully expressed itself here because of the zenith kind of crossroads that this place is. You know, the whole world is drawn here and comes through here. So you have the biggest cross section and sampling, I feel like, of humanity. I mean, now it's rich people, but you have an immigrant, you know, New York, I think I heard on the radio it was like 50% immigrant or something at any one time. It's like the guy's point, he was like really about statistics. He was some statistician, and he was talking about the thing that makes New York what it is, the thing that is unique about it, the thing that makes it as powerful as it is, economically and culturally and all of that, is the fact that it has a huge immigrant population. At any one time, the immigrants power the city. They bring their ideas, they bring their culture, they bring their talent. I'm one of them. But also, you know, of course, internationally, most significantly, you know, everybody wants to come to New York. It is a totem for the whole world, you know, and it is a target and a goal, and more so probably than any other city, I would say. As far as, like, if you want to have cultural, financial zeitgeist type impact, New York is still the center. Paris is a beautiful place, but it's a little bit of an affectation at this point. Tokyo, I just don't think has the center's still not there. The center still hasn't been pulled to China either. Beijing or Shanghai. Granted, I haven't been to those places, and I would like to go. Maybe that should be my next goal, is to get to China, get to Asia. But I don't know. I need to meet up with my friends here. I need to make that an immediate priority now that I'm vaxxed, now that I'm settled. Oh my God, it feels so good to have processed all my stuff. Or I'm in the process of processing it. I moved everything with my help of my savior and number one favorite human being right now, Jabril. And yeah, I unpacked everything, got my shelves up. Should I do a little look-see? Just take a look real fast. I got my shelves up over here. So there's the library. This is like Greg Turkington level videography. Do you want to do a little? Well, we could stand up for a second. We can do a little over here just to change it up. I think changing up the viewpoint is probably a good idea. Oh, fuck. I guess I could sit or something. Should I sit in this chair? Could be interesting for the viewer. We're competing with Netflix. I guess a bunch of people... I'm not surprised. A lot of people are going to cancel their Netflix because their content sucks. So Netflix is going to be super in debt, and all those people are going to go bankrupt, and the executives will get huge bailouts, and... then what? Then it will splinter into all these various... it'll be just like it was before, kind of. It'll just be networks. NBC, Hulu, Disney Plus, Where does that leave Frankly Fabulous? I guess I'm a YouTuber for life. I gotta crack this YouTube thing. I need to figure out how to become an influencer before my unemployment runs out. I don't know. Are there big political issues of the day we need to talk about? Definitely Israel and Palestine, Gaza. Is it Gaza? It's just it's outrageous. Everybody knows it. It feels like Israel is trying to push things to a head. It would have been easier with Trump, but, for the past year... Certainly since the pandemic, I don't know if that's what triggered it, but the way they killed the fucking nuclear scientists in Iran, and they're just they're pulling a lot of shit that they're just kind of asking for it in a way. Who's going to stop them? America is great Satan. Israel's little Satan. So in New York City especially, I heard somebody on the street today say, in meatpacking, I was sitting in meatpacking, I heard this woman say, oh, it's a lot like Tel Aviv. And I met somebody last week that was in Tel Aviv and was telling me about Tel Aviv, and they love Tel Aviv. And, I know a lot of people that Israel is, a very important thing to. And they've been there and they love it. And, there's definitely a strong pro-Israel population, particularly in Manhattan, I would say. In a weird way. It's culturally but, they're pushing the situation. It's provocative. I don't know. I don't think that, I mean, even Andrew Yang. I think Andrew Yang running for mayor, I think he knows that. I think he knows that people in political power in New York City are pro-Israel. And that's why he's saying whatever it is that he said that was sort of unequivocally supportive of Israel's actions. And that's why people are rebuking him, rightly so. But I think he knows that, if he wants to win and be mayor of New York, those are the people, who he needs to placate or whatever. Who knows how far they'll take it? I mean, Biden, I think he said something today about they have a right to protect their land or some shit like that. I forget exactly what it was, but it was somewhat condoning what they did. It certainly wasn't coming out and saying that they need to stop or, setting any kind of dead line about that. Like, hey, we will step in if you continue this. He didn't say anything like that, So who fucking knows? I mean, I'm glad that Trump's not the president, because then they would take it really goddamn far. They would take it to the limit, I mean, I don't think Biden is going to be that supportive of it. Like, we'll have to look the other way or whatever is probably what will happen, but it's an intense thing to come face to face, because the other thing is the military thing is like mandatory. If you live there, you have to be in the Army for a few years. A lot of the techniques, I don't know. We all know it's fucked. You don't have to be unequivocally pro-Israel. It doesn't make you anti-Semitic if you're not. And there are definitely plenty of good people and good Jewish people who are not support what Israel does, But I don't know. It's just they're always having weird elections. There was something, Netanyahu had 24 hours to create a new government, or just absurd. It's like, what the fuck is going on over there? They might be approaching some kind of like insane, breakdown where just like they'll do anything. I mean, Netanyahu, it certainly appears to me, it looks to me like he's nearing the end of his fucking journey, as the guy or whatever over there. Who fucking knows? The way the census turned out. First of all, this census thing is just total bullshit. Like, they should do it again. Like, the pandemic definitely compromised it. No question. Like, it literally happened at the exact... It was like the pandemic hit, the quarantine happened, everything shut down, and then, like, at the exact same time, you got the census. It's like, whoa, what the fuck? I mean, I know I was not here. I was in Ohio. Like, I'm pretty sure my mom filled it out because she's good about that kind of stuff. But, like, that is not reflective, really, of, like if you're going to ask me where my citizen, I mean, I've got a New York license. I didn't happen to, and a lot of people were displaced by the pandemic and just probably didn't fill it out. And so what the story was, did New York lose a seat? And then Texas gained it, like all the fucking worst places. It's exactly like the worst. A lot of the stories in the news that we're seeing, and thank God that people are fighting for this, because it's all about voting rights, and Republicans are trying to restrict our voting rights and change the laws and, prevent people from voting and redraw the districts and redraw the census. And so the census is important because now they're going to get more people in the House. Now there's real fear that the Republicans will win the House. This whole fucking thing with Liz Cheney is completely insane about how they want to, or they did, oust her from whatever the fuck, she's third in command or whatever in the fucking House, or I don't even know what it is, but they kicked her out. They canceled her. First of all, it's not canceling. They want to create, and they constantly are doing this, a false equivalence. That's not canceling. What's happening with canceling is people are facing consequences for shit that's immoral that they've been doing for their fucking whole careers. Like Kevin Spacey has been fucking like raping people and shit. Like, yeah, he's not canceled. It's not like some cute thing like, oh, Kevin Spacey's canceled. It's like, no, he's gonna go to jail because he broke the fucking law. Like, to say that Liz Cheney is canceled is absolutely, this is what Republicans always fucking do. They're trying to like she's not canceled. She's telling the truth. They lost 60 court cases. Anybody who's not a fucking idiot or drinking the Kool-Aid, how are there people in denial about this still? How are there people their allegiance goes so deep that they're willing to say, Trump didn't lose the election. We're not willing to admit this. We're not going to wear masks. We're not going to get the vaccine. We don't want to believe any kind of scientific objective truth, whatever the liberal, lamestream, brainwashing lizard people are trying to tell you, whatever they're trying to hypnotize you with, we're not buying it. We don't care what the fuck it is. Whatever those people believe, we are obstinately going to believe the opposite, and there's nothing you can do to change our fucking minds. Trump won the election. Fuck you, Liz Cheney. You're canceled. Like, that's a bad sign. That's a real bad sign that, like, literally all of the Republicans, I mean, the Republicans have been bad my whole lifetime, but, like, they were usually better at shaping the public. Now they don't even give a fuck. It's literally just like they're fine that they're divorced from reality, and like they'll get behind Matt Gaetz, he's a pedo, and a pathetic one at that, and they'll support him because he's a Trumper. And he just has pledged his oath to lies and deceit and corruption. And they're going to crucify Liz Cheney because she is... I mean, don't get me wrong. I got no respect for Liz Cheney. But, like... I don't know. I guess you might as well get used to the idea that the Republicans are the party of just, like, nutsoid. They think that they're, like... smarter and like more future because of Trump and memes and like the memeification of their candidacy and just like the fact their YouTube videos. Oh, I watch like YouTube videos about how the vaccine's bullshit, so I'm like smarter than you. It's like the internet is a ghetto intellectually. Like, factually, you can believe whatever the fuck you want to believe, and they bend it every goddamn way. And these people are just dumbasses. They just believe anything. They're fucking the same people that, you know, get suckered by carnies and shit. Like, they're just I don't know. Not to dismiss them or shit on them or condescend to them anymore. They hate that. It's well known. But they've achieved sort of a cultural equilibrium because the internet, you know, democratizes the pedestal of attention. Like, it doesn't sit in Rockefeller Center. It's not Studio 8H. It's literally anywhere. It's TikTok. It's Instagram. It's YouTube. It's going live. It's whoever's got followers, basically, is the network. They are the media. They are the newspaper. They are the TV station. If you've got 20,000 followers, if you've got 600,000 followers, if you've got 2 million followers, you're basically a cable show in the 90s or a network television show. You know, I mean, Seinfeld, right? Okay, Seinfeld finale got, 90 million viewers? Well, let's say you have 90 million followers. I'd say that's equivalent, right? It's the same number of eyes. It's the same number. You could say that, you know, if somebody has 2 million followers, they're as big a source as the New York Times in a certain way at this point. So we need to be thinking in those ways, and it is about how do you get the followers? How do you get the attention? How do you get the viewership? How do you make your content, you know, sparkle and stand out? You know, we were talking about this word content the other day, and just like, what a fucking stupid... How it just levels everything out into kind of a gruel. Everything is equalized into content. And the way it's presented, Instagram is content. You know, I would say Instagram is the app or the interface that I would most associate or describe as being content. You know, like, even though it's all content, Netflix is content, supposedly YouTube is content, Instagram seems the most content-ish. And it's just the interface. It's Facebook. It's designed by Facebook, and it does feel like sausage links or something. The chain of it, and just the kind of endless squeezing, and just like everything gets leveled out, no matter what it is. If it's some great painting, if it's a movie, if it's a fucking picture you took with your shitty flip phone and managed to get it on there, like, it's all in the feed, which is like this trough of like highbrow, lowbrow, any kind of aesthetic you can think of. And it all just gets equalized. It all just gets ground up like a hot dog into hot dog. It doesn't matter what it was. It doesn't matter if it was filet mignon, if it was Da Vinci. It's all hot dog on Instagram. It all gets the spare parts. Just throw it all on there. It's all promos and shit. Promos for your shows. That's not content. You know, like, to me, like, content is like I would never use that word to describe anything good. You know, like, a Neil Young album is not really content, right? Like, Bob Dylan album, that's not really content. Is a fucking, you know, Werner Herzog movie, is that content? Or, you know, Bernadette Mayer, is that content? There's content to the poem. Content just feels general, and it feels like an assemblage. It feels like you could throw anything in there, and it's content. Like, Instagram will literally assimilate anything. It just wants... There's no threshold. And now the feed is polluted. It's like a fucking stream that's just full of all this trash and plastic, and just like... You know, you want to see some nice stuff float by, but it's just like, oh, it's all clogged with just shit and trash. You know, it just looks like one of those, like, pictures from National Geographic of some country, where the pollution is just totally taken over, and just like they're like canoeing through like plastic and fucking cartons and shit. That's what Instagram feels like now. And it's like, I don't even get on it or use it really, because it's such a poverty of images. It's just like an overwhelming like abundance of like bad images. It's just, low grade. So it's not even worth. And so like promos, even a selfie, that's not like fucking content. That's thirst trap. That's a cry for help. That's like something you do to like get your friend's support or something. That's not really content. And this bleeding between like your personal life and your work. Content to me implies like this is work. This is work that I've done. If I wrote something and filmed it, that might be content. But like a selfie or like, hey, I got this job, like this post, that's not content. That's like a newsletter. That's like a bulletin board of like, hey, give me attention, give me, approval, because it's not really content. The Beatles, is that fucking content? It's just like, that's kind of demeaning. Like, it's more about the container at that point. The medium is what's important. Oh, it's all just content. Like, it's really about the container. Like, when you're watching HBO, that word was not really used until it became this phone. Content is what it comes through the phone, I would say. Anything that it all gets shrunken down and sort of, it is demeaning, I suppose. I'm not saying you shouldn't watch a movie on your phone, or it's not like a different experience. I would say that it's not maybe the preferred thing for, if you're Martin Scorsese and you're trying to make films or whatever, you don't really want your movie to be on the same, transmitted through the same like medium or tunnel or whatever as TikTok or cat video or worse, Alex Jones or, whatever, Joe Rogan pod. It's all, but the thing is, that's just where it all takes place. I don't think that that's like exclusive to art per se. That's everything in our life. Like, our phone has just become like the arena, the channel, the TV, the computer, the mail, the face-to-face, really. It's become the environment. It's the gallery. It's the park. You can go on YouTube and watch fucking videos of people walking through cities and shit. Like, it's an environment, in a way. It is the environment. It is the subsuming in the most outer context. The reality is the world is no longer the container. The phone contains the world. Like, that is the. It's like here's us, and then here's the world, and then here's the phone internet. Field or environment or whatever. And Giorno's pieces, they're square. They almost look like the aspect ratio of Instagram. They're very Instagram. The box. This is something else we were talking about. The box. the box as civilization, as being boxed in. Apartments are just kind of stacks of people. You know, I had all my boxes full of my books, which are just kind of boxes of language, boxes of thinking, boxes of writing, imagination. VHS tapes are boxes. A projector is a box. It's like a magic lantern box. We were talking about it in the context of storage, but I had all my shit in boxes. You know, it's still, I'm unboxing it right now. Instagram is a box. Instagram is basically like a storage for image data. They don't really give a fuck. I mean, they want you to get likes. They want you to get clicks and views and whatever. But, like, as long as you're feeding their library of information, as long as you're filling their boxes with goods of people's faces, restaurants, businesses, you know, nature, the outdoors. Maybe I'll move over to the chair. Let's end in the chair. I've got the chair back, everybody. Remember the chair? It's only right. Here I am. Together again. My tears have stopped falling. This is the chair. Remember, from Scenes from a Life. This is where I hosted every episode from this chair in my tiny little room where it was impossible to have sex because my bed was... It was literally... Think about that. I had so little space. You couldn't even really stretch out on the floor or anything. I had a loft bed that kind of, you know, you had to hunch over when you stood up. Then I had a little bit of space between that and my bookshelves where I could stand up. So when I do yoga, I had to, like... It was like doing a puzzle or something. I had to, okay, I can do this here, but when I bend over, I got to go over here. And so every time I had sex, it was in this chair, basically. Which is also not easy. You know, it's not like... I didn't even have a bed. You know, my loft bed, having sex in that was like, Jesus Christ, I hope this thing doesn't break and we go flying out the window 3 stories to our death. Now it's like, holy shit. I can have sex, you know, any number of places. I got plenty of room. A lot of different furniture. It can really stretch out, you know. It's amazing. I feel like a rich man. I'm very grateful. But anyway, here I am. I'll probably end up just having sex in this chair again. In all likelihood. I mean, good God, it's just unbelievable that it was a year and a half. It's like, I just feel so good to have it back, and oh man, I just want to enjoy it. Well, you know, I don't know what's next. I gotta build my YouTube audience. I gotta become a huge influencer. Make shitloads of money so that way I can live wherever the fuck I want and have people fly me places for free. Fly me to their hotels, feed me dinner, just so I'll share a social media post about it. So I gotta build up my fucking following and shit like that, you know. If anybody's got any tips how Frankly Fabulous can build my social media empire, I don't know. I just feel so culturally irrelevant. I don't even know how to... I feel like nothing I say is gonna be smart. Everybody's obsessed with being smart. I'm obsessed with being smart. You know, every book, it's like, oh, this is a really smart... Now, oh, this is the smartest show on TV. That's smart. Who gives a fuck? I don't know. I just feel like... I don't know how I could possibly be culturally effective enough to, like, break through. It's so weird. I I don't know what to fucking do. It just all feels impossible. It feels like you're under like a waterfall or something, and there's like all of it feels like everything you're trying to do, like the amount of time and space and concentration and focus it would take to like make something that is actually like finished and right and done enough to like actually be like to like get in culturally. I feel like I'm under like a waterfall trying to do that. Like one of those rides at like an amusement park where you're in one of those big inner tubes with all the other people, and the whole fucking ride it's like Thunder Canyon it's just like the whole fucking ride is just like splashing around, and you're just getting soaked, and there's big fucking waterfalls just like crashing, huge tumults of tonnage on you, and that's what life feels. I just feel like I can't, even with this, it's like I just feel like, oh my god, okay, I have time, I have space, but there's too many things that are just like panic inducing. Like, oh Jesus Christ, how am I gonna make money? How am I gonna get a job? Where am I gonna live next? I just doing anything substantial and that has any kind of like, there's no foundation, to be honest. It's like, what do you work from? I don't know. The circumstances of our lives feel like too quicksand to actually be able to like build anything that's gonna like break through. The people that do break through, a lot of them were privileged to begin with, which gives them a foundation, and then their parents and people just bring them into the industry. To be honest, that's what I've seen being in New York and sort of being able to witness it, first from Brooklyn, from like a little bit. I mean, to be honest, that was an occluded and kind of distant, soi-disant view. Now I'm in Manhattan. Now I see like, oh shit, this is real. And like all of these people's parents just kind of brought them up into it. They just sort of, okay, my kid's going to write and they're going to act on this show, and I'm the producer, and we get them the audition, they get the agent, they get into the right school, they get the training, they get in the play. I'm going to cast them in my movie. My friend, hey, look, my daughter's in this band. Put it in your, it's just like anybody outside that, I don't know. I feel like I've done a lot of work. And the other thing I was thinking about is Broad City. Broad City was like indicative of fucking the NYU culture. All these NYU kids, I realized like my whole fucking time here, I was just like, all these fucking NYU kids. And Broad City is completely about being an NYU kid. That show is entirely about being an NYU kid. And like, I don't know, I felt like temperamentally I sort of, the Broad City, those were people, and that was like a life that I recognized. Girls was more about post-college, and it was about Brooklyn, but it was also about kind of being an elite and being cool. Like Broad City, they're kind of spazzy, eccentric kind of losers in a way. I can relate to that. They've got, but it's all about, like that Bed Bath & Beyond right over here. This whole part of Manhattan, all those that whole show takes place. UCB, that Bed Bath & Beyond, the TJ Maxx, what is that, on 6th Avenue, or, the Trader Joe's right there. And then down into the West Village, they have that whole episode about St. Mark's Place. And it's just like, I saw Ilana Glazer, me and my friend saw Ilana Glazer in Washington Square Park in like 2012. Right before that show was on Comedy Central, but they were big. We were like UCB students and nerds and shit. We were kind of nerdy about it. And they had a really big monthly show there. They had a web series that was big. And like their Comedy Central show was kind of like in the works. But they hadn't, they weren't famous. Nobody knew who they were, but like NYU people and comedy kind of insiders in New York knew, like, okay, this is going to be like a big thing. So we saw her in Washington Square Park. That was 2012. It's so weird to think that, like, Jesus Christ, it's been almost 10 fucking years. And these people have had entire careers. Broad City has been on and is already off the fucking air. The show already went through its entire... And, like, nothing has happened for me. At all. Really. My career has not even begun yet. Like, it is not even... I feel like I haven't even begun to even make anything because, like, just nothing gets off the ground and it just feels impossible. The idea that I would even get some big break just feels like... I don't even know what that would be. Why? How would that happen? Why would that happen? I don't even... That would be so... It's been so long and nothing really good like that has happened, to be honest. I mean, good shit happens here and there. Like, I feel great recently. I do feel really incredibly happy, and I do feel like just like I'm bursting with happiness because of my situation. It's just great. I'm really loving what's going on right now. But it's not like, I've got some fucking Netflix deal or anything is... I mean, I've got a nice, domestic and life and stuff, and it's great. I love it. I feel really lucky. So now I'm just trying to parlay this into fucking some kind of long-term sustainable thing, Just hook my way into this kind of like... I've tried to scrape together what education I can being here, but having no budget and... I mean, I've been able to maximize my time to myself just through my own kind of shrewd, machinations or whatever. But I'm also like, I can't afford to do anything. Take classes, really none of that stuff. I'm an outsider basically everywhere. Things that I should have gotten involved with a decade ago. I have a decade of just kind of being an outsider, doing my own thing, but like I'm not really connected with my heroes. Did I get done what I set out to do? Like kinda, but like in a like only kind of on the edge or like on some kind of outer ledge of it, like I don't know. It's like it's a lot harder to integrate yourself with these people when you're just like cold calling, and you don't, and you're just trying, and like you're to me also, I'm just trying to figure out what the fuck I'm doing. It's like I'm trying to, and I feel like I have, particularly the last 5, 6, 7 years, I've actually been able to sort of like groom a technique that I like and that I can use, but I also it's not official, and it's never, and it's not invited anywhere. Like I don't do this in any kind of venue or I don't have any success whatsoever, really, to speak of. I was reading this review of Walt Whitman by Henry James. And Henry James, because I'm trying to read kind of New York stuff. And that part of New York City, it's weird kind of how far it goes back. Henry James, Washington Square, he wrote a lot about that part of town. So I'm just trying, or like I was looking at The Age of Innocence. I'm just trying to see, like, okay, the layers of New York, the history of New York. These novels could be interesting to take a look at. And then Whitman as well, because Whitman is a New Yorker. And even though Whitman lived in Brooklyn, and when I lived in Brooklyn, there was that kind of like relation to him where it was like he's crossing Brooklyn Ferry, and he kind of goes from Brooklyn into Manhattan, and he walks around, then he goes back. So it was like, oh yeah, that's what I do, and like I just felt like that's what probably everybody does. I didn't realize Manhattan is its own thing. So now I'm getting the taste of that. But, Whitman as this sort of like walker in Lower Manhattan, in this place Pfaff's he went to. Supposedly Whitman did fucking poetry readings in this place Pfaff's on Broadway and Bleecker. It was a basement, and it was like Bohemia, and it was like this sort of salon bar, just kind of like, avant-garde. All of the fucking, who's who of the day would go through there. And supposedly, Whitman would read his poetry there, and people loved it. And, this was before the Civil War, the antebellum period. The Civil War really changed him. But I was reading Specimen Days. Specimen Days is kind of interesting because it has passages from the 1870s and 1880s where he comes back to New York. So, because he lived outside the city after the Civil War, I don't think he ever lived in New York City again. But he came back a few times to visit, and it's kind of interesting to hear his experience of coming back to places he had been before and how they'd changed. Things were torn down. That's a permanent New York thing. It's just things are always changing and getting torn down, and the way it was is not the way it is, And sort of going to the city and like experiencing that, inhabiting that, just being still in your body and, reimagining, putting yourself in that position of the things that are gone, the changes, the movement, the scribble of it, the energetic kind of scribble, the aura kind of pigment of that. So yeah, I've been reading a lot of that history and stuff, and so I've Portable Henry James. It's one of the books I unpacked. I've been processing my books, so I've been reading them, spending time with them, and trying to, So I'm reading this Henry James fucking review of Walt Whitman. He just trashes it. He's just like, this is not poetry. This is, poetry is like memorable. It's meter. It's like, Whitman. It doesn't. What did he say? It was like an electric light with no warmth, or was that? That may have been Whitman talking about somebody else. I think that was Whitman talking about Poe, maybe. But Henry James was just like, this is not, poetry is like when you are emotionally charged to the point that like your speech becomes like totally memorable. And he was like, Whitman is just like, just kind of goes on and on and on, and it never really assumes that heightenedness. It's too casual. It's prose, essentially, I think is, and he just trashes it. He's just like, and I don't know. I think that's how a lot of avant-garde stuff is probably considered. It's like, this is not even poetry. This is, we don't know what this is, but I mean, Henry James basically just dismissed it completely. And I think you see that with a lot of avant-gardes, with John Ashbery or whatever. It's like a lot of people in the 50s, it was like they didn't even talk about it. It was just like, yeah, this is not really serious. This is kind of like just experimental. It's flimsy. It doesn't really have any strength. It doesn't really have any reinforcement. Like, it's not really worth talking about. That's how they looked at Walt Whitman. It's just weird to think that was 100 fucking years before. Like, New York was already kind of a bohemian place, and Whitman was reading his poetry. Part of the point of one of the things I was reading about was he would read his poetry at this Pfaff's place, and all of the fucking, basically the art people, the cool movie stars or whatever, opera stars, theater people, probably Booth or whoever, they would go to Pfaff's because it's on Broadway and Bleecker. I mean, it's a central location even then. And they saw Whitman read his poetry. The idea being that Whitman was sort of like maybe one of the far out kind of avant-garde bohemians of that era. I mean, obviously, I suppose Leaves of Grass was about as transgressive as it got, at that time. And even for long after, Walt Whitman's kind of long line, and it's not really prose-like. Like, that's not really accurate to say. It's just not as... It's not as, like, I don't know. Meter is so much about repetition and sort of like the emphatic repetition. And Whitman kind of like, it's not to say that there isn't meter or there isn't rhythm, but the way it's parceled out is not nearly as, like, sing-songy, and it doesn't have this undercarriage of metric. It's, like this tight corset of grid of iambic pentameter. It's like, no, it's more flowing. It's more in and out. It's more like the ocean rushing, or long kind of biblical rolling passages. The length of the breath, of course. I don't know. These are the psychic energies I'm saturated with here east of the Hudson. The foam and the scud blasting up into my face. Days of yore. Reliving my own reliving. Pass within pass within pass. I already do feel like I lived in New York for like 100 years. It literally, I feel like probably since I've been here, okay, let's say I really moved here, I would say in like 2008 or 2009. That's when, like, I was already kind of here. Even though, like, logistically, it really wasn't until 2010. But, like, I really kind of arrived here in 2008. And I feel like New York I feel like I've been through, like, 5 or 6 different decades of, like, changes. Like, 2008 to 2011, that was all one feel. Then 2011 to, like, 2013, 14, that was another feel. And then 2014 to, like, 2017 or 16, that was a whole vibe. And then 2016 to, like, 18, 19, that was another kind of, like, decade. And then, of course, the more recent pandemic. It's just like the face of New York has morphed a lot incrementally through those kind of years. 2008, 2009, there was definitely a more industrial, kind of heavy. It was those hipster years where it was like everybody kind of was like a Wes Anderson character plus, but like thrifted the fuck out. PBR, trucker. It was like a little more raggedy, a little more Americana, a little more alcoholic and white. The twee thing, of course. But there were thrift stores. There was still, even on fucking Bedford Stop on the L train, there was still like a Salvation Army, and it was still like kind of a grungy, cool college campus type vibe. Whereas now, Bedford Stop is like, a Euro mall. There's a Whole Foods. It's almost like the West Village or something of, Williamsburg. So, yeah, we're reporting live from New York. We're getting to the bottom of it. The psychogeography. That was today's dérivé. That was my revelry, my wandering, my myriad hallucinatory wandering as a flaneur, as a Baudelairean flaneur through the megalopolis. I walked down 8th Avenue, over 19th Street, down like, I don't know, kind of over to Union Square, down through Cooper Square, Bowery, and Houston, west from then I walked down to like Chinatown, Little Italy, Grand Street, Center Street, back up through Soho. I was on Broome. Was I on Broome at one point? I think I walked on Broome at one point. Mercer, Bleecker, Washington Square, Barrow. Well, McDougal, of course. Barrow over to... I took West 4th, where City Limits was from fucking They All Laughed. City Limits, that was 125 7th Avenue South. So I... Right across the street from that fucking FedEx place I put in the episode. Then I walked up West 4th to Bleecker Park, saw Matthew Broderick. Didn't bother him, but his vibe looked cool. We were both kind of like highly ecstatic, just like bursting with light, kind of alive human beings. Me and Ferris Bueller. And then after that, back up through Meatpacking, 9th Avenue. One thing I love about New York, I was sitting in Meatpacking yesterday, and this guy started yelling like a kind of a scary way. He was like just yelling to himself about I don't even know what. And it was kind of scaring everybody, I think. Everybody was kind of like, is this guy going to shoot us all? What the fuck's going to happen? And there's all these guys out selling candy. Literally any fucking time you go to any park around here, these guys come up with like a box of M&Ms or whatever, and they're selling candy for their basketball team or whatever. And the thing I love about New York is this guy's like yelling. And then these guys who are selling candy start yelling back. This guy's like, rah, rah! Kind of violent and just like bad, And the candy guys go, shut the fuck up. This guy's like, ah! What the fuck? Yeah! These guys are like, yo, shut the fuck up. I was like, yeah, this is what's cool, man. Like, these guys they're not afraid. They're not going to back down. They're going to talk some shit back to him. This guy's trying to be all scary and, like, low vibration and shit. Alright, well, thank you for watching. We're going to upload this as a Frankly Fabulous show Thursday, 5:13. Another. It was just a lovely day, just a beautiful spring day.